All right, everybody, welcome back. Sam's Army Match Week 2. This week we got Hot Topic. We'll be talking about Barcelona's Dani Olmo predicament / possible reprieve. Then we'll hit Premier League, where Ipswich's roller coaster, Ollie Watkins finishing, and United's panic status will play prominent roles. Then we'll hit Halftime, Weekly What If, featuring NWSL's bold new changes. Then Round the World with some national team chatter, MLS Minute, and Open Cup heads up. Followed by, of course, Stoppage Time with Ivan Toney's best bets and everyone's favorite segment, GOAWs. Now, time to welcome in this week's panel of extra beautiful beauties, where we got the whole squad again. Always feels good. First up, we got Mr. Tyler Terrans. Need an update from you on where you're going to be this week and what games you're going to be calling.
So this week, I'm going to be calling U.S. Open Cup semifinals, Sporting Kansas City and Indy 11. We are doing that game out of the studio, so I'll be off-site in Fort Lauderdale. And then this weekend, I've got Inter Miami and Chicago at Soldier Field, a Messi-less Inter Miami, which is now the third Inter Miami game I've been given this year and the third time that Messi has been hurt. So I'm calling a Miami game. He probably ain't playing.
Do the math. Do the math on that. I mean, listen, it affects me as well as a season ticket holder for the Fire, and I don't get to see Messi. So
I thought you were going to say because you can't sell your tickets for quadruple the price. But
well, listen, that was sort of the underlying implicit headline.
I brought it to the surface. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, who else we got? Mikey Fowler, a.k.a. Mikey Podcast. So it's been a few months at this point since we've got a Philadelphia update. What's your favorite thing about living in Philly?
Restaurants are actually really good. I'll give you that. People always have a food recommendation when they talk about Philadelphia, and I've been trusting them and been very, very impressed, honestly.
Oh, all right. Pleasantly surprised. I like that. Tommy McGunner, the question that you always love. One-word answer, playoff chances for Loudoun United. Good. Okay. There. See, you should just stick with that every single time, and then I'll never be able to answer that question again. Actually, I hate that I just told you this answer key on that. Never mind. Nix that. Last but never least, Mitchell Goulet, a.k.a. Overtime Mitch. The most important question of the intro here. How annoying is it to have to be the adult in the room monitoring my, rather cavalier Instagram strategy, Mitchell?
Listen, Tommy is the adult in the room. I have ideas when it comes to social media because I've been there and done that before, and I've made the mistakes that others have made before. So that's all I'm trying to do is help us try to avoid mistakes. That's all.
I want to go back and look at the text that you sent. It was the first thing that you got, when you got back from Vermont for a nice little weekend.
Oscar retreat.
It's so far back because we do so much texting. Okay, I'm back on the grid from this weekend, and the first post I see is a Sam's Army Pornhub post. There's other ways to post about soccer that won't murder our algorithm. Brand choice, Samuel. Yeah, welcome back to reality. Mitch, sorry about that.
Listeners, who's right, me or Sam? Should we be posting Pornhub stuff? Do you guys want Pornhub content? Because if the overwhelming answer is yes, I'll shut up and allow the Pornhub content.
There have been several controversial posts among the group, by the way. This one was the one that was kind of closer to the line. The other one was just somebody's dong swinging around, which, for the record, I put the United States and Mexico flag and whatever map in front of it, so it wasn't quite what you're thinking.
Continues to be your defense as if that makes it any better at all.
Yeah.
This feels like the cold open from The Office, where they're taking the Christmas picture and they're all trying to jump up at the same time. And then I think it's Oscar who just simply says, well, wait a second. Has anybody asked the question that's actually necessary here? Is this worth it? And then Michael Scott goes, don't answer that. That's how I felt. Nobody was simply answering that question in the group chat is Pornhub and dong posting worth it? No, which I feel like is a good question for Mitch. We should put that out to the poll. Like, is it worth it? Are you guys enjoying that sort of content?
Yeah. If we could get also the Instagram, algorithm, makers to also chime in, that would be useful. But whatever. Listen, we're trying to find the line here. We haven't quite found it yet, but we're searching for it. I'm the blind one, like doing this in the dark. Anyway, we will move on. I'm sure this will be a topic that comes up again, but for the moment, anyway, we'll move on to Hot Topic, where we got to talk about Barcelona's Dani Olmo situation. So, this was, we've talked about, or people have joked about Barcelona for however many years now. They've obviously had some financial problems. They still continue to make some big deals, though. They brought in Dani Olmo from Red Bull or RB Leipzig for, I think it was 60 million euros, not, just a small chunk of change back in the day for Barcelona. Now that's a big deal. So the interesting thing about this deal, they were not able to register him as a player for them. So he hasn't played for Barcelona. He missed the first 2 match days. So I was going to bring that up and talk about that, but just this afternoon, some new news came out and said it sounds like Barcelona is going to be given a reprieve. So they applied, it's kind of shady, but basically there's a rule that says if you have a player on your roster who gets injured, like long-term injury, you can then register a player in his place.
Martin Braithwaite.
And yes, exactly, that situation all over again. So now we have, it was Andreas Christensen who got a Achilles injury. So originally it was thought to be kind of a longer-term injury. Then they applied to have Dani Olmo take his spot. Then the news came out that it's not as bad an injury as they thought. It might be like a 1-month thing, and I think the rules suggest that it has to be like a 4-month thing. And yet La Liga is allowing Barcelona to get away with this and play Dani Olmo, register Dani Olmo. I don't really have any thoughts. I mean, like, it's great for Dani Olmo. It's probably great for fans to see a great player out there, but it feels a little shady. And there's Barcelona and Real Madrid sort of have that. There's always that talk of La Liga giving them the breaks. This certainly feels like it's going to be along those lines. I don't know, Tyler, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, all the reports are coming out and saying that it's only going to be a month-long injury, and there's no way that La Liga wouldn't have done proper amount of digging. I mean, all it takes is a simple call to the medical team of Barcelona and say, what's the prognosis? But I mean, this is unfortunately what we're going to see with City at some point in time with 115 charges. Like, this is just a different version. This is just the Spanish version. Like,
this is the tapas. This is the tapas version. We're going to get the full entree in a few months, probably.
As opposed to the doner kebab, which is very good in Manchester, by the way, that we're going to see soon.
I'm glad you brought that up because you're probably right. That is what this feels like. All right, so there's your hot topic. In and out, quick and dirty, kind of like MLS Minute. We'll get there later. So now we'll talk Premier League. So, what an interesting weekend of results. We had Brighton United, Brighton pulling out a last-minute win, Bournemouth pulling out a draw against Newcastle. Actually, you could have said it the other way around. Newcastle pulling out a draw against Bournemouth. Wolves getting taken out behind the woodshed by Chelsea. Palace losing again to West Ham. So, Mikey, I'll start with you. What's the game most interesting result of the weekend? What sort of stands out to you?
Wolves played Arsenal well in match week 1. I think a lot of fans came away impressed, and Chelsea, like you said, talked their shit and backed it up. So I'm gonna say that for me, at least, not to say that I predicted it or said it was coming, but I think Chelsea is a top 4 contender. I think they are as talented as anybody man for man, and if this continues to keep up and they string some results together, confidence could go a long way for that team. So that's the one that stood out to me specifically.
Okay, that's interesting. A little hot take there. I don't think, did you have them in?
Yeah, I had them in the top 4.
Okay, coming into the season?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Then you're sticking with it. Fair enough. My thing on Chelsea is I just don't know what to expect. So the fact that they just beat a Wolves team that looked pretty good in week 1, they beat them 6-2. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but at the same time, it's like, well, it's Chelsea. So it's kind of within the bounds of what I could see from them. All right, Mitchell, where are you going here? Match week 2.
I was off the grid in Vermont the entire weekend, so I didn't watch a single game. But I will double down on my Chelsea are going to overperform people's expectations this year, and I will also like to call back my long-term future best bet, which was Cole Palmer to lead the league in assists. Sitting pretty with 3 right now, and that's only going up from here. So hop on that if you can.
Fair enough. Yeah, my FPL team is very appreciative of that. Tyler, who is not appreciative of having no Cole Palmer or Erling Haaland. So we'll probably
Old
talk
strategy,
about. That's an interesting.
My Premier League team, after getting off to like a solid start, I think I was like 8 or 9 points clear of the average last year. I was at least double digits below the average this week. It was a rough showing for FCTT. It was bad news.
Now, as far as game or result, what stood
Yeah.
out?
I mean, I think Palace losing again. I mean, not only because we all, for the most part, agreed that they might be the shocking contender in the top four through the first like 3 or 4 months. I think I changed that very hastily, as I tend to do last week, and I said that it's now going to be Brighton, which that pick seems to look legit, but that was only after a backup pick. But yeah, they look bad, and if Liverpool's performance against Brentford was any indication of what Brentford are, they're not a good team. So Brentford beating Palace and then Palace getting beaten by West Ham. I don't want to say convincingly, but like they didn't. There wasn't a ton in that game for Palace. A couple chances here and there, but for the most part, that was a West Ham win more than anything. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Tommy, last but never least, what game stood out?
So, two, and it's the Chelsea one, which I think for the people that are like romantics about like old school Prem, back and forth, open games, like that's how soccer should be played. That was that second half, and if you like that stuff, you should probably just watch that because that probably won't happen again much more this year. My go-to though is on the other end of the spectrum. If you like tactics and you like it at a high level, that was Arsenal Villa. I thought that was a really entertaining watch. Both teams tactically, it was very well detailed, and then you also had like crazy transition moments. You had individual moments of brilliance both in both boxes. I thought Morgan Rogers, or is it Morgan Rogers or no? That's maybe it's Morgan Rogers. Okay, I was like Maggie Rogers, Sam Rogers, Morgan Rogers. I was getting all sorts of confused here.
Oh, Rogers out there.
Rogers, he is a freak of nature. Yeah. His second half, he just bullied 4 or 5 dudes, and I know everyone on Twitter talks about how Arsenal has like this aura and these physical players. He just made them all little children. That was really impressive. And to be honest, and probably on another day, Aston Villa wins that. I thought they had the better chances to start, and that's gonna, I think, for a lot of these big Premier League matches, it's gonna go down like that.
Yeah. So the Ollie Watkins finishing, as I said at the top, oh my goodness.
Insulting you led with that in the intro, by the way.
I mean, it just stood out to me. The guy had 2 just gilt-edged goals. He had the goals yawning at him, and he somehow missed the goal on the first one, and a nice save by Ryan on the second.
Unai Emery before the game, your tactics to score a goal, he would have described that goal right there to a T. How you win the ball back, who has the ball in the box, like that was... He probably dreamed about that all week, and it happened, and they missed it.
Yep. Missed the goal. That was wild. But listen, Arsenal. What scares me is that like Arsenal played a good team in Villa, and you guys came away with 2-0 win. Like the way it sort of shook out kind of scares me about sort of what we're looking for, what Arsenal is going to be this season. But at the same time, I just keep telling myself, listen, Aston Villa could have been up 2-0 at one point, and so it makes me a little less nervous.
Can I pose a ridiculous thought into the group? I felt like as much, and I was even texting the group, and I was saying this game has like a March or an April feel to it in terms of like what's at stake, reactions after tackles and clearances and the whole thing. After what happened between Villa and Arsenal last year, and Villa doing them over twice, like, there clearly was an agenda of revenge for Arsenal. But It almost felt like that game mattered way too much for the point of the season that it was in. Like, I'm just going to throw it out there, like, maybe Arsenal are kind of like blowing their load a little bit early when it comes to, like, again, those reactions, it felt like it was maybe like the last day of the Premier League, and like they need
it being so early is what I honestly think. If it was in the middle of December, it would have meant less. It's just so fresh to them that if they picked up 3 points at all against Villa, they would have won the league. And it felt really, I mean, the pregame build-up and everything, even the way you watch them walk out with very stoic faces, I think that pregame talk was fresh enough to the start of the season to be like, you're twice now, you've blown it, and it's because you've let these ones go. So if they can bring that all year, I don't believe in the idea of teams being too intense too early. If you have enough of a rotation, I think they still have some work to do in the window. But taking these seriously, I think, is a step in the opposite direction of what you think. My opinion.
I don't even know if I I don't know if I was actually thinking that. I just noticed it a lot, right? Like people noticed the Odegaard taking pictures after they smacked Liverpool, the game that I was at the Emirates. Like people were freaking out and being like, "Oh, they fancy themselves to win the league now, even though there's still like 7 games left or whatever it was." I just couldn't. I just noticed it as something. I was like, "Wow, this feels really fucking intense for all 90 minutes." Like
It sure was.
yeah.
I love the way you took it though as a bad thing for Arsenal. I love that about you, Tyler. Keep that energy.
Stop! No, that's not what I'm trying to do. Don't roll me in. I'm a third party observer here. Don't do that.
So the game that stood out to me was not Tottenham Everton, which honestly, when we dropped points last week, I really felt we had a big win in us coming up against Everton. Everton, obviously, maybe a team we'll talk about when we get to the power rankings in the bottom 3, perhaps. But the game that stood out was Brighton United. We went into the weekend thinking this is going to be a very interesting game, and it was. Here's my hot take from that game, which Brighton won on a last second goal. I would be more worried about United's performance in the first game than I would be against their performance against Brighton in that game. Because they looked like a team in that game against Brighton who was a very good team. They were playing at Brighton. That's a tough place to play. United has always had trouble there, at least recently. Like, they looked like a decent team. Obviously, they had some problems, everywhere. And, I don't understand what Ten Hag's doing at the back. He keeps changing up their defense every single game. I don't understand that when everybody's healthy. But I would be more concerned about their game in the first game, which they won 1-0, than I would be against this Brighton loss. I don't know. Is that a hot take? Too hot?
I think this is super interesting. I was talking about this earlier. The idea of the 38, we take everything at such an analytical level week by week, and we analyze these results and what they mean. But we've heard things like, Ollie Watkins' blown chance, Raya save, even something as simple as the offside on Xerxes. Like, these change they played about the same way, and I think both are concerning. But as far as results go, I don't think anything really is to be learned from a result when the performance isn't there to back it up. I'm just trying to get into the idea of how the margins affect how we talk about these things. That offsides is crazy, and it's just such a beautiful, beautiful Ten Hag loss. But I don't think either one is more significant. I would just say the performance in general. You talk about the back. He's got to figure out that front four. It's a weird thing going on there, and I can't believe he's still there.
I also think that this is the juncture of the season where, I agree with Mikey, we get over analytical, but we're not going to know the impact of what these wins and losses mean until week 20, when you're going to say, oh, that was actually a great win against Brentford, or that was actually an honorable loss against the Brighton team that's in third, on Boxing Day or whatever it might be. We're still going to sort that out through the course of the year in terms of what these wins and losses actually mean right now.
Brighton's unbelievable, by the way.
I was going to say, Brighton looks good.
They keep changing everything every year, including the manager and the system, and they play the same way.
That was shocking defending on the goal, though. That is high school level. The ball gets cleared, everybody's head goes to the ball as opposed to still marking up because that's what you're supposed to do at a base level. That was horrid.
They had every defender except for maybe one was on the ball side.
There were 3 Brighton players who could have finished that playoff. Yeah. João Pedro was not the only one who was going to score that if the ball had gotten through.
In stoppage time, no less, which, that doesn't get worse than that. One game we haven't mentioned, Bournemouth and Newcastle. So controversial finish with Bournemouth's would-be game winner I think it was in stoppage time, chalked off due to a handball, which, I watched the replay 10 times. I guess that it was probably the right call. It was, was it shoulder? Was it hand, arm? It was close. But I think the takeaway, though, outside of that is what's going on with Newcastle, right? They snuck away with a 1-0 win against Southampton. Granted, they were on 10 men for most of the game in week 1, but they looked just, I don't know, lackadaisical, sort of just lacking ideas in week 2 already. Against a team in Bournemouth who I think a lot of people were concerned if there's going to be a big team, a team that is from last season sticking around that might go down, it might be Bournemouth. I was just sort of disappointed so far by what we've seen from Newcastle. Just point that out there.
They've always got a center back problem there. Every fucking week.
Yeah. But, like, they have so many. They got Isak. They got, Gordon. They got Joe Linton, who tried to take the keeper's head off.
They can't control the play with Kelly, Byrne, Kraft, and Livramento.
Yeah. Look at that front line compared to that back line. I think there's something going on behind the scenes there.
It's like the drawing of the horse that just
right.
runs out of ink at the end.
Yeah. I know the one you're talking about. And then there was the Joel Linton play where he basically headlocked the keeper.
Clown.
I don't know how he didn't get a red card for that. But shout out from the Goal Scorers Union. Love that play.
You're
all right. Now, quickly, we've already had one takesy-backsies on season prediction. Do anybody else want to sort of step up and say, you know what, maybe I was wrong about this. I'm gonna take it back. And okay, Mikey, what do you got for us?
Ipswich is not staying up.
Now, did you say Ipswich is staying up, or that
I said
if
all three were staying up? No, I said all three were staying up.
Okay.
I would like to change my relegated parties. I would like to amend that to Leicester staying up. Everton will be going down.
Ooh, okay. Well, we're going to get into that very shortly with the bottom, with the top and bottom of power rankings. Okay, that is an interesting take. I think I know at least that I came into the season thinking Everton was not going to be like even among the relegation threat teams. They've looked terrible so far. So I guess if I'm going to take one back, maybe that's the one I'm going to agree with you on. But I still think Everton will figure it out at some point. Now, quickly, before we get to power rankings, FPL. So, number one, let me give a couple of shout-outs to the people who are way, way better at this than me and everybody else on this podcast. So, it's called Saka, Ryan Miller, and McAllister's Deli, Harrison York. You guys are tied for first place on 181 points already. I don't know how that many points is even possible. Like, are you all triple captaining and using your bench boost and whatever else? I don't know. Anyway, shout out to you guys, Ryan and Harrison.
They're blowing their load too quickly with the triple.
Way too quickly.
Are they using some?
Says the people who literally have a third of their points. A third.
I know. I wish I'll have 181 by Christmas probably.
Dude, I was like top 20 in the world after 4 weeks, like last year or 2 years ago, and it just went
Tommy?
all the way down. So
speaking of blowing your load a little early, then.
Yes, exactly.
You know what that's all about.
From experience, yes, I do.
Shout out Tommy's girlfriend. White Monster FC, who is in third place. Kyle Ray, 178 points, not bad. Sun and Gun, Sam Millett, 177. You're in fourth, and then Pingin and Wingin, Sam Bellinger at 174. Actually, you're tied with Tony Bologna, which is Ryan Olsen's team. All right, you guys are way better than all of us. I'll give you the update on the Sam's Army Council of Elders League. So since we're nowhere near... Actually, let me take that back. First of all, Mitchell Goulet is on 153 points right now. That's not so bad. So Mitchell is in first with 153 after scoring 100 points in game week 2. Jeez. Speaking of blowing your load, did you use any bench boosts or anything?
He did it great.
Nope.
Oof.
Holland and Cole Palmer. Tyler, you're going to come around eventually. You're going to have to use that free hit, and you're just going to completely restructure your team. You have to have Holland. Very simple.
I don't have Holland
What is the free
too.
hit? What does that mean? What is the free
Oh,
hit?
God, we don't have time.
Okay.
Listen, I'm actually on Tyler's side because between a free hit and wild card, it's easy to get those two mixed up.
I don't know what those. I can get on board with triple captain, bench boost even.
I'll send you a link. We'll do a whole tutorial.
All right, so Mitchell's in first, 153. Mikey in second, right behind him, 149.
I won't be in second for long.
I'm in third, 137. That's all thanks to Cole Palmer and Erling Haaland, by the way. McGunners, Tommy McCabe, 129, and then Tyler bringing up the back here at 105 points, which is an interesting place to be because we just talked about how we're gonna have to figure out a punishment for the guy who comes in last, and I noticed Tyler brought it up and has not brought it up since. So maybe you're rethinking the punishment thought.
What did we land on for that?
I don't think. I think we were going to open it up.
We can't,
okay.
we can't do it now. There's too big of a disparity.
I think we should take submissions.
We're gonna open it up to the I was gonna open it up to the crowd. I suggested one that I then wanted to retract immediately because it's something that I would be horrified if I had to do it. But it was basically the loser has to do like some sort of TikTok dance, which we will post on socials, which would just be absolutely terrible. That would be the worst sort of punishment known to man. Slightly less bad than getting Solanke tattooed on my ass, but only just like barely.
Yeah, but that comes with Tottenham winning a trophy. Like,
true, there's good and bad there. There's good and bad.
This other one is you finish last amongst your peers in Fantasy Premier League and you don't know ball, and you have to do a TikTok dance with your opposing team, with your rival team's kit on. That was the other part of it.
Okay, I like that. So maybe we'll open it up, and then Tyler's not going to be happy about it, but we'll figure out if we can all agree on a punishment for last place. Now we move on. Power rankings. Top 4, bottom 3. This is Tyler's favorite segment, so we'll start with somebody else. Let's go, Mikey. How about you just give us your top 4 in order. We won't go around the group and everybody do it. You give us your top 4, and then we'll critique.
Very hard to put City ahead of Arsenal when they haven't had the same test. That being said, City is ahead of Arsenal. Haaland is back to scoring at will. I believe that this is a streaky player, and if he starts the season well, look out. If he doesn't, he'll still end up with about 30. So I'm a little bit worried by that start. They do look a little bit like they're going through the motions. I'm saying that as somebody who really hopes that they slip up a few more times, but I think at this point there's no reason to put them ahead of who clearly is second, which is Arsenal. The away win at Villa. Liverpool third. Hard to say that they're not playing a great style already, despite a few of the locker room problems I would love to discuss with Tyler, either on the air or not. And then fourth, I'm going to say it's Chelsea, the slight edge over Spurs, because if they played right now, I think Chelsea's a little too physical for the younger players of Spurs who are dancing around some bad, disinterested teams. But I would say Chelsea has the edge on a neutral field, which is the purpose of the exercise, I believe.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I've said this all along. I don't know what to think of Chelsea at this point, but that performance against Wolves was impressive. And Madueke, by the way, we haven't even talked about him. Well, he sort of mentioned it, alluded to it. Him talking the shit he talked accidentally, and then going out and walking the walk. That's good.
Yeah, I'm sure Maresco loved that though. Like, what?
Probably not. So for anybody who don't know, like, he posted Wolverhampton, everything about Wolverhampton is shit, or everything about this town is shit, or something like that. He posted on socials. He's not wrong. I've never been to Wolverhampton. I'm not going to throw that out there. But he posted it on socials. He meant to post it as like a, two close friends thing. He posted it to the public. So obviously it took about 2 seconds before everybody was all over that. He immediately sort of he posted a follow-up saying, sorry, that was not meant for the public consumption. But obviously anything on the internet is out there, just like our TikTok dance will be out there forever. And so basically that was the talking point coming into the game. And then he scored a second half hat trick. So, I mean, wow, that's how you do it.
Ball head of the week.
It almost never works out that way where you talk shit or do something that dumb. I was having this conversation the other day about like Aaron Rodgers and how he just says and does so much ridiculous shit. I was like, somebody like that never ends up winning. Like, someone who does that many things never ends up being on the right side of the playing history of things. Forget what they're saying in terms of accuracy. But like Madueke, I think, is the exception to the rule. Like, that's a wild thing to do after you just made that post.
Right. I mean, it's the best way to handle it. It's just not, not everybody can pull that off, I think is what we're getting at. Okay, so we got Mikey. You were City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. Now, Tyler,
Correct.
Do you want to respond to his allegations about locker room problems?
What basis do you have for this?
The Trent video.
What about it?
That's a body language nightmare, and you know it.
Now, what you should do, Tyler, is ask him about Trossard's body language and celebrations. Because Trossard is not pleased with what's going on. Would you? I mean, what do you? We got three.
I was a backup to Martinelli. I'd be fucking pissed too.
Right. We got 3 Tweedles here. Let's get you guys. What are your thoughts on Trossard?
How are you that quickly moving past? The guy scored a goal on the road at Villa. He's fine. What's going on in
Why
Liverpool?
Is he not starting?
First?
Why is he not starting?
This is what they've been doing since he came to the club, and it's going quite fine.
They haven't won the title since he got to the club.
He should start, but there's no body language issue with I score with my first touch and standing there like I'm the fucking man. You want him to do the big ball symbol in front of the fans or something? Like that's what he should be doing after that.
Now, serious though, you guys didn't think that his celebration was like kind of a fuck you to Arteta?
Yeah, the Eric Cantona celebration sure showed that he was mad at Man United.
I can confidently say there's something definitely more worrisome about what Trent was doing than there was about Trossard. But I still don't think whatever Trent was doing is like serious. There's body language issues everywhere. Like it always happens at some point during the season. I mean, Sadio and Mo Salah hated each other for the first 2 years. I mean, really hated each other.
That's like fair.
Salah's body language is bad too. Salah is bad.
Right
with
now,
Mane,
it's not.
No, with Mane, it was bad.
Okay.
Like you see, a compilation of all those.
But
it was bad.
Mo's love it. All of them are loving this right now. Diaz is loving it. Salah's loving it. I mean, Trent might not love what's going on because this is more patient than Jurgen's Liverpool. So like maybe he wants to hit the big 60-yard ball, and Slot's basically saying like, let's chill the fuck out for a second, which I think he actually might enjoy, because then that way he's not going to get absolutely torched 1v1 after he makes 7 60-yard runs down the right flank, and then he gets in a 1v1 position. Everybody's like, Trent's a bad defender. It's like, no, speaking of blowing your loads too early, no, he just literally ran his dick off for 17 minutes straight and then get matched up 1v1 with Saka. Like, of course he's going to get burned.
My takeaway, by the way, from this weekend is Liverpool is officially off. You guys were my all-stars last season of, like, getting scored on, scoring a bunch. But, like, listen, both teams to score and our overs. Liverpool you were a hero last season. You're off. You're off the list. Like, I'm not betting you guys, like, at all. Like, you should have. That was a game that Klopp wins 4-1. That's a game that Klopp wins 4-1. That game this weekend against a team that showed absolutely nothing.
I mean, Nunez didn't even start, and we still had trouble finishing the soccer ball.
Sam, if you really want to talk about it, I think the idea of control and not being that helter-skelter is quote-unquote back as far as title contention goes.
It's all cyclical, right? I just don't like it as an over-better. That's all my point is. It's very specific.
You had a big win in Leagues Cup, my man. I mean, you backdoored that motherfucker so hard.
My God!
That was a 1-1 game in the 90th minute. You backdoored over 3.5. And what are you complaining about right now?
Listen, I'm not complaining. I'm going to live on that win for a couple weeks, and I can't be mad about anything from gambling wise. A couple weeks based on that alone. You're right, but I'm just pointing it out. Okay, now wait, we didn't actually sort of get to the discussion on top 4: City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. Anybody take issue with that?
Yeah. I would swap Brighton for Chelsea.
I would put City third, Liverpool second, Arsenal first.
I also don't hate that.
I think City's going through the motions right now.
They have no choice to, though, with their first 2 games. It's
right.
really
what are they supposed to do?
To look like, prime top of the table City when you're playing Ipswich.
But agreed. Liverpool had a very similar schedule. Granted, new manager, slightly more motivation than, we're going for our 5th in a row. I get that.
Yeah, but also the level of unfamiliarity that comes with that.
Yeah. Brighton has remained my second favorite team to watch until Liverpool passes them with Slot. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch, I think.
Okay. Now, bottom 3. So right now, just looking at the table, there's 5 teams with 0 points. So we got a lot of contenders here, and one team with 1 point. So Everton at the dead bottom, dead last, with a -7 goal differential. They've scored 0 and got scored on 7 times. That's a bad ratio. They're in last. Wolves is actually in 19th place. I don't think anybody's going to put them in the bottom 3 form-wise, although I guess we could. Ipswich at 18, Palace 17, also 0, and Southampton also 0 at 16th place. So, Mitch, why don't you take it? Who would be your bottom 3?
Everton is down there. Ipswich is down there. And then I think Southampton. I don't think those are the three that are going to get relegated, but as it stands right now, again, I did not watch this weekend, so I'm talking about first week performances and results. But from what it looks like, Everton are hopeless, and I don't know where goals come from in that team. Ipswich still look like a deer in the headlights coming up to a new league and getting their shit packed in by Man City, and then Southampton is going to have to fight to stay up. I think Leicester stays up. I do not think Southampton stay up. But that's my bottom three right now.
Okay, I like that bottom three. Southampton, I watched some of that Nottingham Forest game. They really were listless. They showed nothing, and they didn't really show much in the first week against Newcastle. So I do think they're going to, like, I guess you could say they're tough to get scored on since they've only given up 2 goals in 2 games. They played that first game almost up a guy almost the whole time. And they should have given up about 4 goals to Nottingham Forest. So they're in my bottom 3. I'm actually with you. I co-sign your bottom 3. Anybody want to take issue at all or move on? We move on to the weekend preview. So some intriguing games coming up this weekend. Staying on the Brighton train. Arsenal, tough start to the season, by the way. I think we've talked about that on the pod. I know we've talked about it off the pod. Arsenal welcome Brighton this weekend. United welcome Liverpool. And Newcastle will be hosting Tottenham. Those are sort of the 3 highest profile games. There's obviously 7 other games to pick from. So, Tyler, what game are you most intrigued by, looking forward to?
Intrigued, Arsenal and Brighton. Looking forward to United and Liverpool. What does slot ball look like in a derby match? Does Eric Ten Hag's group have a response after a pretty atrocious loss? Much to prove on either side, on top of the fact that it's just a Northwest England derby that needs revamping from a quality standpoint, from a consistency across the board. And I'm talking about United specifically. But yeah, that's how I feel about this weekend. And not for nothing, I didn't realize we booked our flights for MLS a month and a half ago, and I need to get in a better habit of looking at when Liverpool played to then book my flights. I went back and rebooked it. I was going to have a nice slow morning in Chicago on the lakefront after a game for the Fire. So instead, I'm going to take a 6 a.m. flight back home so that I could make the Liverpool United game and not be on the plane while it's going on.
Oof. Now, what you should have done is taken a 4 o'clock flight and gotten drunk watching with me.
Cool.
So just think about it. Put that in.
I could have done that, but then I run the risk of planes getting delayed.
That's true.
Taking the last flight out is usually dicey. So I appreciate the effort. It will happen.
Sometime. AJ Hudson's or the Globe, one of those times. All right. Fair shouts. Good games, both of those. Mikey?
I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen, and it's interesting. I think Tottenham's going to beat this Newcastle team, and you all are going to freak out and act like you beat a top 4 side. I think that's going to happen this weekend. I think you're going to see a lot of celebrating like you're finally arrived, and it's setting up absolutely perfectly for the next few match weeks after that. I'm excited to watch you beat Newcastle and see the tweets that this may be the year. That's going to start right away. I'm very excited. And meanwhile, Newcastle's starting 4 grade school children in the back. So enjoy that performance.
I was going to say that goal, that game seems like it might have some goals in it, the way that Newcastle's been playing lately. And then we play you. We get the North London Derby.
So you're going to go into that thinking this is a real thing.
Okay. I love it. You've already tainted our win a possible win in the future. It's already tainted.
You're going to beat Newcastle. It's going to mean 0.
He's sticking to what he said during week 0 episode. He said he's no more reverse jinx. He goes into every game thinking Arsenal's the best club in the world.
All right, listen. I like that, Mikey. I like that version of Mikey. Stay with this one.
Freaks me out.
I'm not comfortable with it, but I like it. Tommy, what game are you looking at?
The reverse of how Tyler phrased it for the same 2 games. Intrigued versus looking forward to. And I'll sprinkle in Ipswich Fulham too.
Okay. Does that feel like a 6-pointer? Is Fulham a team you're worried about?
No, I just think Ipswich could win.
Okay.
And those are valuable for a team that just got promoted.
Yes, and it just got absolutely spanked by Man City. We didn't even mention the fact that they gave up 3 goals in about 14 seconds in that game, after taking the lead, by the way, at City. Okay, Mitch, what game are you looking at?
All the ones mentioned, obviously.
Arsenal Brighton, but I also want to mention both teams to score in Man City games have been cashing out like crazy. Doesn't matter who they're playing, whether it's Ipswich, whether it's West Ham this weekend, they seem to concede just once. They very rarely concede twice, but just once every game is kind of been my sweet spot for them. So from a betting perspective, I like City, but from an entertainment and fandom perspective, Arsenal Brighton is going to be phenomenal for the for the casual and the third party viewer. So tune into that if you wake up early enough.
Right, and of course it's the 6:30 a.m. Central game.
Yeah.
7:30 Eastern, 4:30 a.m. Pacific.
I'll be in LA.
Oh, there you go, Mikey.
Ooh.
Enjoy
Sam,
that.
come to my hotel room and snuggle for the Arsenal Brighton game.
Maybe we will. Maybe we'll do a little late night, all night. Maybe an all-nighter.
And all
Now we're talking. The one game that I'm going to want to point out, Chelsea Palace on Sunday. Because, yes, I know we're all kind of high on Chelsea after that win against Wolves, but it would just be quintessential Chelsea to come out and lose at home against a Palace team that everybody is now seemingly souring on. That would just be the perfect sort of unpredictability and whatever. That just makes so much sense. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm just going to point that out. Just if Palace shows up, Chelsea doesn't, that will validate all of my thoughts anyway on what Chelsea is, which is, I have no idea. I have no idea what they are this season. Okie doke. There we go. Now let's head to halftime, where we would blow a whistle if we had that kind of high cost sound equipment, but we won't. We'll do halftime, though. Big news from NWSL, where the league and the Players Association agreed on a new CBA that includes some bold changes. These include free agency for every player and guaranteed contracts with essentially what's a built-in no-trade clause. So those alone are certainly interesting. The one that I think caught a lot of people's attention is the fact that they are eliminating the draft. So no more draft, getting rid of it. It's the first league in the U.S., first pro sports league in the U.S. to get rid of the draft. So a bunch of interesting moves. I think first we have to go to our resident GM, our future GM, Tommy McGunner, and just sort of get your thoughts. What are your thoughts here on the announcement, on the news, on the changes?
Yeah, I think it's great for the league and for the players. I think given the last 4 or 5 years for the NWSL, I think the players had a lot of power in making this new CBA more player friendly, at least to the public eye. That's how it's come off. I think some of the stuff around guaranteed contracts, I think they made an amendment to kind of the housing process for players. So it's just increased the quality of life and stability for the players across the board, which I think is fantastic, especially with a competitive league coming in with the USL Super League and then also foreign leagues. But I think the draft one's really interesting because I think a lot of people would say that some of the most talented, if not the most talented players are in the U.S. coming from the college system. And that's really their first right of refusal on those players. And now if you open up the market freely, you have these top European teams that can pay just as much money, if not more, for the top players. I think it's going to be super interesting. And if you're a top player, it's a very good position to be in. You're probably going to make a lot more money than you would through the draft process. But everyone else that falls underneath that, it could be a waiting and guessing game to see where all the other dominoes fall, and you have to find the right fit, and it's kind of in preseason or late on in the season. So I think it's not necessarily that one specifically isn't great for all incoming players, but I think if you're looking at the top end players, it's a fantastic position to be in with the European leagues getting bigger and the infrastructure already built over there through some of the top men's teams building out their women's sides. And then you also have this where there's no draft and you can kind of choose where you want to go. I think it's a great position of power for players to have.
Okay, now so to open this up to everybody else, let's just make this the weekly what if. What if MLS followed suit, did the same thing, got rid of the draft? How would that change the landscape of American soccer? Because I'm sure it would in many different ways. Any thoughts, Tyler?
I think that a lot of teams would lose their bread and butter, and then a lot of sporting directors would be found out a lot quicker than they normally would have, because I think that there are some sporting directors who don't value the draft, who don't take it seriously, who don't scout, and they end up getting saved a lot by players who are on 80 grand to 120 grand who are coming out of University of Central Florida and are, giving them the most consistent minutes throughout the course of the season. So I think that for some team, it would depend on the team what exactly that looks like. But overall, I mean, like, it would be a really interesting concept to just have guys running around, no real method to the madness in terms of how guys are going to trickle out of school, and then what that Generation Adidas program will look like. Do guys have to still stay in college for a year or two and still go through some sort of other there's a lot of questions that would need to be answered. I think that the draft makes it the most digestible across the board, but you would have a lot of guys who would go unnoticed, who might end up on USL Championship teams, who otherwise shouldn't, because whatever the combine for that or whatever the replacement would be would not be good enough in terms of getting guys into camp immediately.
Okay. Any thoughts, Mikey, Mitch, Tommy?
Let me beat around the bush as one person who's been drafted here. I'm giving you all the fuck you on that one. This isn't the main source of top talent in MLS, whereas it is a source of top young talent in the NWSL. So I think what I just described about the bottom end of the draft, where whatever the order falls out, you land on someone who fills a role that unexpectedly. That's the beauty of the super draft, is people are chosen to fill a squad role, and some do and most do not. And so without that method, I think you'd, like Tyler said, you'd have a lot more people who'd have to do their research and very specifically pick someone or sign someone to fill a niche or specific role.
And now, so this is from the player perspective. What about from the team perspective? Would this basically give teams like Miami, LA, New York, maybe Chicago? I don't know if we fall in that category at this point. But, the destinations that people want to go play, would this not give those teams a lot more power?
It would. But that would mirror, European leagues, and that would mirror other major American sports in true capitalist fashion. The bigger destinations and the bigger markets would have a bigger appeal. I briefly want to speak to where the NWSL is in the pantheon of women's soccer, because I feel like they are more towards the top, I know they're more towards the top of the global women's soccer scene than MLS is in the global men's scene. And I appreciate the agility of the league to realize when they need to assimilate to the global system, as opposed to MLS, which pushed against it with the draft and continues to push against it. I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I just kind of admire the NWSL for being a more willing participant in the global football ecosystem, as opposed to MLS, who is trying to kind of carve out their own niche, both of which are doing so in good ways. But I think the NWSL is also a great example of closed mouths don't get fed. I think some of their players on social have been some of the most vocal about CBAs, and they seem to be really, really happy with this. And I just feel like other leagues and other players could take notice of that. So I just wanted to speak on the NWSL removing the draft. But as it relates to bigger markets getting more appeal, yeah, that's just kind of an American ideal in sports leagues, isn't it?
Right. It's kind of strange that we really sort of subscribe to this socialist idea when it comes to drafts, and yet everybody thinks of us as the most capitalist society in the world. There were a couple of things about the no trade clause. I got some comments on Instagram, people saying, that won't work. But I think it's important to remember that a lot of these players that are playing NWSL, they need a second job. The salaries are not high enough for them to just sort of, kick back and just train and play. They have to have another job. So things like no trade clauses, where you have another job lined up, and you're not being taken out of that situation. I think it's just a small little thing that Tommy would probably know better than us, that is probably very highly valued by players. So that was an interesting little tweak that I thought was interesting and good. But yeah, I guess we'll see how this all falls out over the course of the next year or years, especially if MLS ends up buying NWSL. And then what happens? Who knows? A lot of hypotheticals there. We'll move on. Round the world time. So do we want to start with the minute in what, the hit it and quit it man? Are you ready to hit us with your MLS/Leagues Cup chatter?
I stays ready.
I've got to get ready when you already ready.
All right, so we're going to start in my favorite place in the entire world, and that's Minnesota for the first game of the resumption of league play, as Minnesota United were playing host to the Seattle Sounders, of course, coming off of a brutal 3-0 shellacking at the hands of LAFC in Leagues Cup quarterfinals, but Seattle come back with a response. They beat Minnesota at home by a score of 3-2, despite a brace from Kelvin Yeboah, their new designated player, in his debut. Meanwhile, back in New York City, Chicago Fire on the road. They are officially without the likes of Xherdan Shaqiri, and in their first game, they were down 2-0, and they clawed their way back. Brian Gutierrez and Hugo Kuipers with the goals in the second half to take a point out of a game against NYCFC, who's been very good. Meanwhile, Inter Miami and Cincinnati played to a 2-0 decision in favor of Miami, and that was coming off the backside of a 6-1 win for FC Cincinnati in Cincy about a month and a half ago, and then Miami returned the favor about 6 weeks later. And of course, as we know, revenge is best served cold. In Montreal, New England Revolution 5-0 winners. Shout out Sam Pham, Tim Parker over CF Montreal. Just a brutal look for the Canadian side. Meanwhile, in Charlotte, Red Bulls and Charlotte FC, Dean Smith's group, played to a 1-1 draw, so a good point on the road for Red Bulls there. Meanwhile, DC United and Dallas in our nation's capital. Dallas 4-3 winners. In another game for DC United, what feels like the 10th in the last 15th in which they've had a red card. Troy Lesesne has a serious discipline issue on his hand. Meanwhile, very good win for Dallas and Peter Luc Song, who's done a great job since taking over for the fired Nico Estevez. And if that name rings a bell, it's because he was the assistant coach under Greg Berhalter for a few years, including when they went to the World Cup. Meanwhile, Sporting Kansas City and Orlando City. Final score, Sporting 3, Orlando City 0. Big win for Sporting before they go into U.S. Open Cup semifinal duty. Nashville 2-0 losers at home against Austin in B.J. Callahan's first game. Yes, the same B.J. Callahan who won a trophy with the U.S. men's national team, filling in for Greg while he was still trying to decide whether or not he was going to be hired. That ended up being the wrong decision, as we know. Houston at home against Toronto FC, and John Herdman's side come away 1-0 victors. Real Salt Lake at home against San Jose. This is a very good RSL team who is vying for a top 4 spot in the Western Conference against the worst team in the league, and San Jose come away winners 2-0 in the resumption of league play at Rio Tinto. I know it's not called Rio Tinto anymore, but it still is to me. Meanwhile, Portland and St. Louis, if you bet the over, good for you. If you didn't, this one's going to hurt. 4-4 is the final score of Vander with a free kick from 25 yards away to level the score deep into stoppage time. I think it was in the 95th or 96th minute, so big point for Portland, despite the fact that they went down a man against the St. Louis City group that seems revitalized under John Hackworth, with a few new signings, as well as just sort of getting used to the interim head coach. And then LA Galaxy 2-0 winners over Atlanta United. Marco Royce registering a goal and an assist off the bench in his debut for the Galaxy. Big win on the road. Big win at home, at Dignity Health Sports Park. And then Leagues Cup final 2024 rematch of MLS Cup final. Last year, and again, it was at Lower.com Field, and Columbus Crew dominated first half. Second half was a little bit sloppier. LAFC started to work their way into the game. Cucho Hernandez got the goal before the first half was over, and then Olivier Giroud scored his first goal for LAFC off of a set piece, and then Columbus scoring 2 goals, which allowed Sam to backdoor his over 3.5 bet, and both of those goals coming in stoppage time. And the Crew have gotten to 3 finals now in the past 9 months: MLS Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup, and Leagues Cup. They've won 2 out of 3. The only loss coming because somebody poisoned their food, allegedly. I'm not going to subscribe to that theory just yet. But I think the Columbus Crew are arguably the best team in MLS history. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. They play the best football. They're the most well-coached. They're the most talented. I can't see the only other team that I would put into that conversation would be the 2017 Toronto Football Club. Sebastian Giovinco, Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley. They got to a CONCACAF Champions Cup final. They won an MLS Cup. I think this Columbus Crew team is probably better, as they should be 7 years later, with more rules at the disposal of GMs to be able to build your squad better. I know that was way longer than the average minute that the MLS Minuteman is used to, but I hope you enjoyed the ride. And if the erection lasts longer than 4 hours, then call your doctor.
It's good. It's good. It's good that you have that flexibility, that you're able to,
Every once in a while, I can deliver something that satisfies all parties. Every once in a while.
Usually with some alcohol involved. Okay, perfect. Well done. Thank you, sir. Now, before we get off of the, sort of domestic leagues and everything, you mentioned Open Cup. You'll be calling the Sporting KC Indy 11 game on tomorrow. And then there's the Seattle Sounders playing LAFC in the other semifinal on Wednesday. Now, we were texting back and forth during the Leagues Cup final that, there was a certain things that could happen, in which case Indy 11 might actually qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League. Now, because Columbus won the Leagues Cup, is that situation out?
So the situation still exists. Basically, what would need to happen is Indy 11, they could theoretically treat this game like a final, where if they win it and they get to the final and LAFC beats Seattle, then no matter what, LAFC already has a bid as a Leagues Cup finalist. So the top three finishers in Leagues Cup all got automatic bids in CONCACAF Champions Cup. 2 finalists, and then the third place winner, which of course was Colorado. So if Indy 11 get to the final, they would receive, in theory, the U.S. Open Cup bid if LAFC were to beat Seattle, Indy 11 were to beat Sporting Kansas City, and then the two teams meet in the final regardless of what happens in that game. With that said, this would be unprecedented in the modern era of CONCACAF Champions Cup. Whether or not CONCACAF would actually honor the bid for CONCACAF Champions Cup remains to be seen. Don't ask me how I know that. It's just information that I happen to stumble upon, but it was not straightforward when Sacramento got to the final in 2022 if they were to have beaten Orlando, whether or not they would have gotten the bid into CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Interesting. So that's just something to keep an eye on as the U.S. Open Cup plays out. That would be, Twitter would go berserk if if something like Indy 11, technically qualified for CONCACAF Champions League and CONCACAF did not honor that. That would be, don't even want to think about it. Anyway, all right, we will finish up the Round the World segment with a quick men's national team chatter, a little update on the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, Brendan Aaronson coming back to Leeds and doing things. Man's make things. I mean, he's back to his little sort of just he's everywhere. He's running. He's doing things. He's scoring goals this weekend. So shout out to Aaronson coming back and bringing the thunder. Christian Pulisic just continues to be a menace for AC Milan. I know the rest of the team, not so great. They lost to Parma this weekend. That's not great. Although Parma, to be fair, they got 4 points. They got a draw against Fiorentina and a win against AC Milan. Maybe they're going to be a little bit better than at least previous seasons. But point being, Pulisic, the guy is playing incredible soccer. And listen, we need that, to say the least. And then the best part, for me anyway, Weston McKennie. So I put a post up on Instagram about it. He was told by Thiago Motta, brother, you got to go. We just don't have room for you on this team. We don't see you as a valuable member of this squad. And that's the second summer in a row that a Juve coach has basically told him that. And for the second summer in a row, he just kind of put his fingers in his ears, went back to work, battled, fought, proved himself to the coach, and got a new contract. I mean, that's we hear a lot of questions about the mentality of this, men's national team squad and all that stuff. I love to see McKennie do it. We could argue about, is this the best team for him? Should he have moved on anyway? All that stuff. I don't care. I just love the fact that he showed this kind of mentality and said, you know what, fuck that. I'm just gonna be good enough for this team. And now he plays Champions League. He's gonna play on a Champions League team. I mean, that's awesome to see. So shout out to Weston McKennie there. Now on the bad side, quickly, Gio Reyna. So we talked last week or the week before about, Matt Turner needing to go somewhere. Gio Reyna is playing. He got 9 minutes in the opening game this weekend for Dortmund. But 9 minutes off the bench, that's not a lot. There were some interesting quotes from the coach and also the sporting director. So sporting director Sebastian Kiel, he said in an interview, Gio has to accept his role and free himself from it. Now, I'll be honest, I don't quite understand what that means. I mean, I understand the first half. I don't understand what freeing himself from it means. But it just sounds like, I don't know. What do you guys think about the Gio Reyna situation? This is a guy that everybody in the USMNT fan base is excited about, has been excited about. Obviously, there's been ups and downs. There's been sort of the situation with Berhalter. What are we thinking here?
That sounds like a line. That doesn't actually sound like a commitment to the player in project. That sounds like a line to dismiss what he ultimately is not thinking about, which is Gio Reyna's playing time. As one of our premier players, as American fans, we are hypersensitive to Gio Reyna's minutes, but as his coach, he just really doesn't seem to give a shit about it. And if he's not finding minutes, he needs to move. It's the same thing we said about Matt Turner. Our best players need to be playing football week in and week out. And if Gio Reyna's not able to find the field on one team, he needs to go find it on another.
So let me finish the quote now because it's actually kind of interesting. Gio could become very important for us this season. That right there is kind of telling.
That doesn't mean anything.
Not important right now.
I could do a lot of things this season. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Well, it suggests that he's not important.
You're gonna
right
have
now.
to. It's you're gonna have to pay if you want him.
Okay. So you think he's speaking to other teams? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. These guys, these foreign coaches, directors, when their things are translated into English, they sound like the most poetic, abstract artists possible describing their art. It's just just pretend you're looking at a piece of art that makes no fucking sense, and that's what that guy's talking about.
That's a quote from any sporting director / manager.
Yeah.
Okay, especially English second language been translated. Fair enough. We'll move on, put a bow on this episode. Stoppage time, where we will start with Ivan Toney's best bets. Wow, I got to tell you, the Overtrain, we hit something very big and very heavy, and it did not go well early in the week. So we started out 0-3 in the first Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and that included a 0-0 game on Thursday. That's the first 0-0 embarrassment I've had in these Overtrain picks. Not good. But here's the thing: we came back strong. Thankfully, Portland and St. Louis on Saturday got us back on track and finished strong with the Danish game on Sunday. I feel good about this. I feel very good about our picks this week. Overtrain 5-a-side, Wednesday through Sunday, one a day. I really feel good about every one of these games. I put a lot of thought into it. I knew I failed everybody last week, so it's time to come back big and bad and strong. So here we go. Wednesday, Philly and Columbus. So this is a game where, Philly's going to be a little mad about how things went when they just played Columbus in Leagues Cup. They got Columbus coming to Philly. I can see them scoring 1, maybe 2 goals at least, and Columbus is Columbus. Nobody's going to stop them completely. So Philly and Columbus on Wednesday, that's going over. Thursday, Servette, the Swiss team, and Chelsea are playing in the Conference League qualifier final, and this is the second league. The first game they played, it was 2-0 Chelsea. There should have been 15 goals in that game. I don't know how that game didn't go over. This one will go over on Thursday. You can take that one to the bank. Friday is actually the game I love the most. Genk and Westerlo in Belgium. These two teams, there's 8 goals a game with these games each, and now they're playing each other. It's going to be great. Saturday, we're going to La Liga, Valencia and Villarreal. And then Sunday, we're going early on Sunday morning, K-League action, Gangwon and Suwon. There we go. Wednesday to Sunday, one a day. Let's go get rich. All right. Ivan Toney's best better. Mitch, you look like you're ready to go. What do you got for us?
I do. I got 3 of them, not nearly as obscure as the leagues that Sam gives you, but I got 3 main European leagues. All of these games are on Saturday. I like Barcelona -1.5 against Real Valladolid. Did not say that right. I like Villa moneyline against Leicester, and I like over 2.5 between Leverkusen and RB Leipzig. That explains itself. You put all those together, you're at +385.
I like it. In and out. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Tyler, what are we looking at?
We're in the Arsenal Brighton game. I like Liverpool to win at United. This is a parlay, folks. Keep in mind. And then I like over in the RSL New England game.
Listen, it takes big balls to do an Arsenal over. Brighton? At Brighton? This is at Arsenal, right? I think it's at Arsenal. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yes, interesting. Fair enough. Mikey, what are we looking at?
So I was trying to find a way to get a bet on something Southampton related, but I'll save that for Goa. I think there's 2 things that stand out to me right now, and one of them's in Serie A. I think I've watched a little bit early on this season. Inter are the only real complete team. Every other team has quite a bit of flaws. I think Juventus looked good today, but they'll eventually fall apart with their youth and all that new change going on. But I think Inter, they're still only like -130 to be Serie A favorites this year. I think it's worth putting a flyer in on them. and pairing that right now with Southampton to go down. You can get that for about plus 300. Those are my snap judgment picks. I think those two are pretty clear to me. So I would say Inter to go up, Southampton to go down if you have some cash to put a future down.
All right. Inter to win the title in Southampton.
Yeah, sorry.
Fair enough. Tommy, I like that. That's a long-term play. So that's for future. Tommy, what do you got for us?
The over in the what I'm calling the German hipster derby between
I love that game.
Union Berlin and FC St. Pauli. I will be watching both the home and away legs of that league fixture.
I wonder when the last time they played in the Bundesliga was. It's probably been a little while.
It's probably been a while, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. I'll have to Google that. Yes, the fact that the Brooklyn, somewhere in Brooklyn,
that's my cool game of the weekend.
Yeah, somewhere in
whatever
Brooklyn.
Whatever Mikey used
bumping.
to do. Yeah.
All right, GOAWs time. As always, I got a whole list, so I'm not gonna take your guys. Mikey, you look like you're ready to rock there.
Super interesting one. I've started this new thing where I'm using this segment to shout out guys that I think don't ever get discussed but consistently play above what the public thinks. I'm going to finally give Thomas Souček some flowers. Pretty consistent player in the Premier League for 2 seasons now, in the millionth percentile of guys in the air. Had a great summer. I think people forget that he played really well at that tournament for a team that looked pretty good. Scored in the first 2 games of the season, or he had an assist in Matchweek 1 and scored in Matchweek 2 to start the year. And as bad as, the whole changeover at West Ham has been, and I think they look poised to be semi-decent, he's retained his place, made himself indisputable, and has been a Premier League streets don't forget guy. So I think Thomas Souček is going to burn my Matchweek 2 Goa randomly. And he also was on my bench in FPL, so what a dick. But that's fine. I'm actually really impressed with his output recently, and I think he's hitting a really good point in his career. So got to give a little bit of shout out.
How old is Thomas Souček? He looks like he could be 47.
I would guess 31. That's probably younger than that, though. 29.
24.
Oh, no, it's
29.
Yeah.
He's 29.
I'm kidding.
He's
I'm kidding.
He really does look like he'd be like my
I'm a
dad.
big fan. I'm a big fan. I'd put him in the base of a team in the mid-table in the Prem any day.
Okay, good Goa. Mitchell, you look like you're staring right at me, so it looks like you're ready to go.
Hard not to. Yeah, I got 2 of them. I got one of them is Fred and Jose for United, Fenerbahce, but I looked at this through the lens of a United fan, and it kind of felt like 2 of your ex-girlfriends hooking up after you broke up with them. Like, you're happy to see it, but you kind of think, oh man, what could have been, Fred with a hat trick on the weekend, and Jose subbing him off having a little laugh. They both look like they're having a good time over there in Fenerbahce. So that was a good one. And then I also want to shout out a esports player, the New England Revolution FIFA player, Jafonzo, who made just south of $450,000 last year, which is more than well over half the team of the New England Revolution themselves. Granted, this esports player is in the top 10, ranked in the top 10 in the world, and I'm sure he grinded for where he's at, but it's just the juxtaposition of an esports player making more than most of your first team players is really funny to me. So shout out Caleb Pongratz on the information on that one, but that one made me chuckle.
Well done. Yeah, that's a good shout. I mean, like I've always been, I kind of laugh about the esports and everything, but it's such a big business, and I kind of laugh because I suck at it and I don't play.
Real money in it.
Yep, absolutely is. Can't deny that.
Sam's Army FIFA tournament. I'm sure listeners would be interested, but I'll kick all your asses.
At some point, we got to get something like that going.
Sam's
I'll
gonna
be the
bring
moderator.
he's gonna bring his typewriter for that. If you haven't heard it in the
I was gonna
background.
say, are we playing this on like Sega Genesis? If we're playing Sega Genesis, I'm gonna rock your guys' world.
Typewriter and Atari out there.
I love the. Tommy's always got to get an ageist joke in there. He's always got to do one. All right. In fact, Tommy, you look like you're ready to go. Let's go. What do you got for us on Goas?
Ben White. For anyone who didn't see the play, hate McGinn. We had this conversation over text, but I think he's one of the more hateable players in the Premier League right now. Tyler can argue if he's one of those guys that you hate to play against but love to have in your team. I would not like him on my team. But
No bias.
So Because also, I thought he was about to do Saliba's knee earlier in the game or after that, where he just like ran through him. But so him and Saliba get into something. Then McGinn kicks the ball off Saliba and it bounces like 5 yards away. And Saliba's about to get up and like bum rush him basically. And then Ben White just smacks the ball like he's pretending to clear it and just hits McGinn in his thick chest. I want audio on what that ball, the sound that ball made when it hit McGinn's gut.
Tommy might be more spiteful about John McGinn than I am about Bruno Fernandes.
There was some vitriol on that.
He just goes around hurting people recklessly. It's not even like making an attempt for the ball. Like he's going after Saliba's chest and almost like does his knee by landing on him. Like if you're gonna hurt someone, at least go for the ball. I don't think he does that. And he's holding Villa back from being a top 4 team consistently, but that's just me.
Oh, I think you'd hit the nail on the head, Tyler. He's got some real hate.
I'm joking. The last bit I'm joking on, but yeah, I think it's the injury thing. It's the injury thing for me.
Mikey, have you transitioned all your hate from Maupay to McGinn?
I feel bad for Arch Gray. Archie Gray. He wouldn't have to be on Tottenham if it wasn't for John McGinn.
How did that work out?
He broke his leg when he was 16, and now he's stuck at a mid-table side instead of where he should be.
Jesus. All right. Listen, you're getting in the North London Derby talk a little early here, which I respect. Who's the last? I think Tyler. He's the last one to go.
Joe Linton. I mean, what are we doing, man? And how that's not a red card and Shar got sent off and his was, I just will never understand. Never understand. Shout out Joe Linton. That's an outrageous way to stop a counterattack. I've never seen anything like it before.
Crazy.
How did he not get a red card? I just don't.
Out of all the shit that we've seen red cards for, and you thought I forgot about Spurs and Liverpool last year too.
No, I know you have not forgotten about that.
I'm still upset about it. Still upset.
There were. I mean, you can do this every week, but there were some interesting calls, like the Man City Ipswich game. Ipswich player
Mosquera again cleaning out
Mosquera.
Oh my God.
He was one of my go honorable mentions. That guy is just an absolute villain.
I'm not wasting my time on him.
If you haven't seen it, go look up Mosquera's challenge against Chelsea. That's all you need to type in on YouTube.
He's just out there trying to kill people. It was Caicedo, I believe, this time. Yeah.
He's hurt.
Yeah, I think he got hurt because of it.
What do we think about that rule? I know we're well over now, but the rule, if you injure somebody and you get a red card for it, where if it looks like it's intentional, you have to sit out as long as they're injured.
The Jordan Pickford rule, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
That would be tough. I mean, you could then just
It's deserved. Pickford should not have played 2 years ago.
Okay.
Speaking of Pickford, one of my shout-outs is going to be the GKU this week, because Pickford, who else had it?
Martinez.
Ipswich had one.
Emmy
Martinez. The goalkeepers, what are we doing out here, guys? Just get rid of the ball. So a couple other ones. Dortmund, we talked about Gio. Dortmund fans, this is an honorable mention, they revolted. This is such a quintessential, Bundesliga fan story, but Dortmund fans revolted over a commercial deal that the club did with a weapons manufacturer, which, interesting move. And I think they actually announced this deal like 2 days before the Champions League final, which is big brain move by somebody in the media department there. Somehow it flew under the radar until just recently, now that the fans are not happy about that, which you would expect given Dortmund fans' history. I'm surprised nobody said Madueke, the way that I guess we already gave him his flowers, but that to talk that talk, even if it was accidental, and then walk the walk, you at least got to give him an honorable mention. Also, last honorable mention: Rutgers and UMass women's soccer team, or at least the individual players who just went down like judo chopping and swinging, and wow. Yes, well done. You see a lot of chest bumps or little sort of, what do we call them? The meeting of the minds, literally, the little forehead kisses. No, they weren't messing around. The Rutgers and UMass soccer players, they really went after it. My actual go though is good friend of the program, Dax McCarty, who announced this will be his final season in MLS. I think it's 19 seasons. What a run. What a run by that guy. I mean, like, listen, he's been on the program. We'd love to have him back anytime, obviously. But Dax, congrats, man. Great run. Just absolute legend. And somehow a better person. Better just dude. So shout out to Dax. And there we go. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back bigger, better, stronger next week. I forgot to thank you guys, Mitch, Mikey, Tommy, Tyler. I love all of you. Yes, we'll be back. See you guys then. Hopefully the Riverside or wherever we're doing this, like the audio is going to be better, the video is going to be better, the editing is going to be better. It's a whole new brand new day for Sam's Army. See you guys next week.